It's Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina with another Sunday night live stream show. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and hanging out with us here at Hubbard's Marina. Appreciate you spending your Easter Sunday night with us here at Hubbard's Marina for our live stream show. Gonna get started here on Facebook. Hey guys, Captain Dylan Hubbard at Hubbard's Marina with another live stream fishing show. That's right, we are back at it. It is Sunday night, April 12th, Easter Sunday, and we have our newest episode of our live stream show starting now. So thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us here at Hubbard's Marina. Of course, Facebook loved. Facebook had to go and change their whole live setup, so I apologize for being a little late tonight. But hey, I got it figured out all on my own. I'm so proud of myself. But we are going to get started here very shortly. Hopefully everybody can hear well and everybody is getting the video in nicely. We're going to get started very shortly. Remember, don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Don't forget to share this video with friends and to tell your friends about the great live stream show we have going on tonight here at Hubbard's Marina, because we want to get up to 400 live viewers, because when we get up to 400 live viewers, someone gets to win a free 39-hour fishing trip. If we don't get up to 400 live viewers, then someone gets a half-price 39-hour fishing trip. But either way, some great stuff going on tonight. We're going to give away a 5-hour half-day for 2, 10-hour all-day for 2, and hopefully a free 39-hour trip for 1, depending on how many viewers we get. But gonna be some good stuff tonight, and I appreciate everybody hanging out and spending their Sunday night with us. It is, again, Sunday night, April 12th. If you're watching live, just bear with us. We're gonna get started here in just a few moments. If you're not watching live, if it's not Sunday night, April 12th at 8:31 p.m., you can go ahead and skip forward to where you see the video start and pick us up from there. Don't forget, again, to comment where you're watching from. Share the video with your friends on your favorite fishing club page, on your timeline, and happy Easter. I forgot about that one. Happy Easter, everybody. Thanks for spending Easter Sunday night with me. Definitely excited to get back out here and get back to these live stream shows. I want to apologize again about last Sunday. I don't know what happened there. That was my bad, and I apologize. But definitely happy that I didn't forget tonight. And I appreciate everybody keeping us on their radar and joining us again for another show. So with that, I think we are pretty much ready to get started. Let me make sure I got the right stuff pulled up here. All right. I think we're ready. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, Captain Dylan Hubbard at Hubbard's Marina. Thanks for hanging out and joining us for another live stream show. So these live stream shows, we like to hang out, talk fishing, nearshore and offshore fishing, answer questions. Generally, we start the show by talking about what we've been catching, what we're seeing going on now, and what we have coming up. Unfortunately, due to this virus mess, we are completely closed. We've been closed since March 23rd, and we're not planning to open until May 1st. Hopefully May 1st. Praying and hoping for May 1st, trying to stay positive with that. But that Excuse me, that is currently the goal. So with that, we don't have any photos excuse me, of what we've caught this week. But we do have some great photos from some of our fishing friends. Keep in mind, guys, we do that Fox 13 show every Friday. And I have to put that report together Thursday mornings to submit it. So please help me by submitting your photos. Your photos need to be submitted by Wednesday night or at the latest early Thursday morning before like 8 a.m. And you submit them right to this phone number right here. Text that number, your photos. You just simply send me a photo message to that number with what you caught, what day you caught it. As long as it's recent from the past few days, I can use it for our Fox 13 report, and we use it in our Friday email newsletter fishing reports, and we use them for our Sunday night live stream show. Normally, I just need inshore fishing photos like snook, redfish, trout, flounder, mackerel, pompano, sheep's head, tarpon, those kind of fish. Typically nearshore and offshore species we have plenty of photos of, but right now with the closure, I need anything and everything submitted. So please, just wanted to give a quick shout out for our Fox 13 reports. Please submit your photos. So with that, let's get into showing you what's been going on this week. Here's what's been caught recently around Hubbard's Marina inshore. Some big tarpon rolling through the pass lately. This lucky angler actually hooked this tarpon while snook fishing inside John's Pass, throwing one of those flare hawk jigs, working the bottom, and was aiming for snook, ended up hooking into this monster tarpon, and was lucky enough to land that fish. May or may not have been on the beach. I don't recall. I wasn't there, but really cool fish. I think I would have, under the circumstances, hopped on the beach to land that fish too, because that's definitely a fish of a lifetime on snook tackle. Here is a nice big old speckled trout. Angelo Rivera fishing up north of our area a little bit, but still in the general viewing area, catching some nice speckled trout underneath the bridges. A lot of people have been asking recently. I've been getting a ton of emails, texts, calls. Hey, where can we fish? Is there somewhere we can fish? Because the fishing piers are closed, like Skyway Fishing Pier or Fort DeSoto Fishing Pier. A lot of fishing piers are closed, but somewhere that's always open are bridges. Bridges do not close, and luckily underneath bridges, there's a lot of times some public land. So underneath Johns Pass Bridge, underneath Sand Key Bridge, underneath Terra Verde Bridge, underneath the Howard Franklin. There's a bunch of different, not the Howard Franklin, excuse me, the Dick Meisner. There's a bunch of different bridges locally that allow you to fish from the bridge. And if you can't fish from the bridge, a lot of them allow you to fish from the area underneath either side of the bridge. So some good, helpful information if you're looking for a place to go fishing right now with everything closed. But some people have their own boats and are getting out there to catch fish in the boat. This is Elizabeth and Alex. Shot me a ton of photos from their recent fishing trips. Lots of snook, redfish, and trout. The redfish bite was definitely really good this past week. There was some snook action too, but I would say the redfish were definitely king this past week. The snook were a little bit harder to get chewing. The redfish were really excited on the front side of that full moon. Soft plastics are a great way to target those redfish, or live white bait, great option for redfish. Snook like those live baits and those soft plastics as well, but I like using a little pinfish on an outgoing tide by a bridge. Lately, the snook have been biting best at night in and around the passes. They're definitely starting to get out on the beaches. Some monster snook caught on the beach this past week. Obviously, with beaches closed, you got to either find a private beach or fish from a boat targeting those snook on the beach. But there's some of the inshore fish. We just ripped through them real fast from the past 2 weeks since we didn't have a show last week. There's what we've been seeing around the Bay Area, around Johns Pass and all of Tampa Bay, inshore fishing wise. So let's work our way near shore and show you what's been being caught near shore. Now, I want to remind everybody out there, if you have a question, this show is a Q&A show. So the goal is hopefully you have some questions for me, and we can talk about your questions once we get through the photos. So if you have a question, make sure you text me that question to that 727-393-1947 number. Don't forget to shoot me those questions so that way we can make sure that we get to them. Because without your questions, if you put them into the comments, I'm not going to see them. They get pushed down and we don't end up seeing them. So make sure you text me your question so that way we don't lose your question in the shuffle. I would appreciate it. And don't forget to comment on the video. Comment one time to make sure you're entered to win a free fishing trip. And let's get into the nearshore photos. So recently near shore, there has been a lot of these guys caught near shore. When I say near shore, generally that definition is from the beach out to about 20 miles. Offshore is 20 miles and beyond. So near shore is out to 20 miles, typically about 100 foot of water. Offshore is 100 foot of water plus 20 miles plus. So this guy was near shore just outside of the Egmont Key Channel. Caught him on a kingfish stinger rig and a live bait. And he did the proper method of the old hook release. These sailfish are super delicate species. A lot of times, if you bring them out of the water, they don't want to survive. They're really hard to get back revived. So we try not to bring them out of the water. Obviously, on charters with clients who haven't caught a sailfish before, we'll a lot of times bring them out of the water real fast, snap a photo, and put them back in the water. But they are very delicate fish. If there's any way possible you can avoid bringing them out of the water, that's best. Down in Costa Rica, I went down there to film the fishing show with the real animals, and the Costa Ricans wouldn't allow you to bring a sailfish out of the water. They'd grab its bill and lift it out of the water. You can hang over the side of the boat, take a photo with it, but they would not bring the fish onto the boat for that reason. So it was pretty interesting, different cultures and the way they take care of these fish. A lot of blackfin tuna recently around the area, tons of blackfin tuna, really. Those Egmont Key Channel ships that are anchored up, those cruise ships that are anchored up and beyond, anywhere from about maybe 15 to 20 miles is where these blackfins start, but they're more common in deeper water. But near shore, we've been seeing a lot of these blackfin tuna. Definitely some good eating fish. And then the hogfish bite's been going pretty well. I love this hogfish photo. That was submitted to us for a Fox 13 report. Nice kingfish. The kingfish action's been going real well. Been seeing a lot of kingfish. This was, if you caught my Fox 13 report last week, this was Kevin Carlin and his boys. They caught this 66-pound kingfish. You can see the channel marker behind them, and if the camera was turned around, you'd see land. This was spitting distance from Egmont Key in the channel, trolling spoons behind planers. 66-pound kingfish. That is truly a monster fish. I don't think you can really see the size. There you go. Try to zoom it in for you. That was a crazy catch on a planer and spoon. In pretty shallow water. They were only in about 40 to 50 foot of water. Some nice big mangroves lately. These guys are on the mangroves for sure. And another nice sailfish. This was a different fish. Captain Tim No and the Flying Fish Fleet down in Sarasota caught and released this guy. And like I mentioned before, being a charter, they quickly took it out of the water, snapped a photo, got it back into the water, released it healthy. And that's the trick with those sailfish. You got to be so gentle with them. It's like trout, but even more or even less hardy than trout. They really don't want to go back into the water and live too well. So you got to be super careful with those fish. Right now, we are currently sitting at 350 live viewers between Facebook and YouTube, so we're real close to giving away a free 39-hour trip, but just a little shy right now. So hopefully you guys have a friend you can call, tweet, text, whatever, to get them on the show, because we need to get up to 400 live viewers to give away a free 39-hour trip, but we're still giving away a half-price one if we don't get there. And to start things off, I think we're going to go ahead and give away a 5-hour half-day trip for 2 people. 5-hour half-day trip for 2 people. Let's go ahead and see who won 5-hour half-day for 2 people. Coming at you. Got a burp. Taryn Nichols from St. Louis. Thanks for watching, Taryn. Congrats on your 5-hour half-day trip win there. Make sure, again, if you are chosen as one of those lucky winners, you do have to go ahead and text me at that number in the upper right-hand corner. Text me your home address very quickly to prove you were watching live. So Taryn just won that at 8:45. So you have about 5 minutes to claim that free trip. So you got to text me by 8:50, Taryn, with your full home address. That way I can mail you out that gift certificate for a free 5-hour half day for 2 people. And we will mail that out once we reopen in May. So any free trip winners during this closure, please be aware there will be a little bit of a lag with your trip being mailed out. All right, so with that, let's get into these questions. And first, announcements before the questions. So announcements, we talked about the first one already. The kingfisher here. Kingfisher running really well. We're seeing a lot of tuna, a few sailfish. The hogfish bite's still going pretty good. Starting to slow down a little bit. We definitely see more hogfish in the cooler months, but we're still seeing some nice hogfish action, and hopefully in May when we reopen, they'll still be ready to cooperate for us. Let's see here. The gift certificate deal. We are still doing the gift certificate deal. If you go onto our website, just go to hubbardsmarina.com. On our website, you can click store. You can click gift certificates. And when you're on our gift certificate page, you can purchase a gift certificate by hitting this beautiful blue button that says buy gift certificates. Once you're in the checkout, make sure to use the coupon code Hubbards, HUBBARDS. That gives you 20% off a gift certificate. You can buy up to $1,000 gift certificate with 20% off. That only comes out to $800. So definitely make sure you take advantage of those gift certificate deals. Those are going to run through the entire time we're closed. So make sure you get a chance to take advantage of that. What other things did I have to talk about? Oh, Jack, my son Jack, we did his first couple boat rides. Now that he's a little bit older, he's holding his head up well, and we have nothing to do. And we have a lot of boats sitting around not doing anything. We have to check the boats. We have to keep them running, keep them moving, and make sure that everything's good. So in checking some of the boats, we've been taking Jack, my son, out, cruising around. Haven't done a fishing trip with him yet, but he's definitely been out in the boat a few times, so that was pretty special. I wanted to share that with you guys for sure, because I know a lot of people had asked. All right, let's see here. First question, what is your go-to product to get the what is your go-to product to get the fish and squid smell off your after after a trip? The go-to product is scrubbing the boat. After you get done scrubbing the boat with bleach and soap and water and Dawn and Fabuloso, generally after a good hard scrub down of the boat, your fish smell is pretty relinquished. If you still have some smell left over, a little bit of Jameson helps me, or just lots of scrubbing. But there's really not anything super good to get the fish smell magically off your hands. Lemon juice works really well. There's some products out there that claim to get the fish smell out, but I mean, generally after a long, hard trip, it's in the corners of your nails, it's under your nails, it's everywhere. So to get the smell off, best thing to do is just to scrub the boat down with some bleach composition. So a little squirt of bleach and some water and some Dawn, maybe some Fabuloso in the head. And once you're done scrubbing, then take a good hot shower and hope for the best. A lot of times it just takes some time to get out of there. There's no real good product to get the squid smell off your hand. But Jameson will make you forget it. Let's see here. What other questions? One question, how does the May 5th 39-hour look? It looks really good. I'm hoping that we're able to make it happen. Again, we're planning to open May 1st for some more fishing fun here at Hubbard's Marina, but time will tell. Right now, we have a statewide stay-at-home order, and that statewide stay-at-home order is supposed to last till April 30th. Because of that statewide order, our county has made charter fishing non-essential and forced charters to close. So in Pinellas County, you cannot legally run a charter during the statewide stay-at-home order. So we chose to close before any of that was mandatory. Well before any of that was mandatory, we chose to close on our own accord for the safety of our families and our staff and our crew and our captains, and especially you guys. But at this time, we cannot open, we cannot choose to reopen until that statewide stay-at-home order is rescinded. So we're planning and hoping to reopen May 1st, but unfortunately, it's completely and utterly out of our hands and not in our control. But time will tell, and we should definitely have some solid idea by probably, I would guess, the next week. Next 7 days or so, we should have a solid idea. So right now, May 5th is looking good, and we're hoping for the best. Let's see here. What next question. For a first-time trip in March, April, what fish can be caught using the live bait instead of the cut bait? Well, it kind of depends on what trip you're talking about. So the question was, again, first time trip in March, April, what fish can be caught using the live bait versus the dead bait, the cut bait? It really depends on the trip. The trip will dictate what you're going to catch, when you're going to catch it. And for example, a 5-hour trip, a live shrimp would give you a shot at a hogfish. The dead cut bait will give you a shot at a variety of other species like gray snapper, porgies, sea bass, maybe even a hogfish too, but the shrimp's going to give you a better chance at it. So whoever asked that question, let me know what trip you're talking about, referencing, and I'd be more than happy to better answer that question. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? When on a 39-hour trip, should I bring a bait fish net? It's a good question, and it is recommended. On myself, I typically don't bring a bait net on a 39-hour. A lot of times I just use my trusty hand, or maybe a nice neighbor has a net that I could borrow. But yeah, it definitely helps to have a bait net on a 39-hour fishing trip. Because on any 39 or 44-hour trips, you have your own personal live wells assigned to just you and you alone. And that live well is where you keep your live bait. So it does make it a little easier to catch your live bait when you've got a bait net. Let's see, what other questions do we have? What is the difference in habitat between spots that holds quantity of red snapper in mangroves as opposed to just mangroves mostly? In other words, how do you avoid red snapper during closed season, and what draws you to certain location when season is on? Great question. If I knew how to avoid red snapper, we would be a lot better off. But generally, To avoid red snapper in seasons or in times of year when red snapper aren't open, we generally look at those fish shows. So a lot of times red snapper are going to be in a big school hanging up above off the bottom. So a lot of times during red snapper season, we're fishing deeper, from 150 to 250 foot of water, and we often will have those bottom machines range set much higher so we can see the bottom, and then we can also see 40 to 50, even 60 feet off the bottom, and we're looking for those big shows of red snapper up in the water column off the bottom. Generally, when fishing for like grouper, snapper, bottom species, we see the bottom and maybe 10, 15 feet above it and maybe 5 feet below it. We're really zoomed in. Our range is only maybe 20, 25 feet, because we're focused on the bottom features. When fishing for red snapper, we're looking for those fish up in the water column. Generally, red snapper like deep water potholes, shell bottom, hard bottom, they're pretty much anywhere. Artificial reefs, lots of different areas to hold red snapper, but the key is to go deeper, because those deeper you go, the more size you're going to see more consistently, and they generally have less pressure, they're less leader shy, they're more aggressive. So I like fishing for red snapper closer to 200 foot of water because you see bigger fish. And to avoid them, I try to avoid those fish shows that I suspect are red snapper, and I fish more natural ledge bottom for mangrove snapper. So good question there. Another question is there any merit to gutting fish before putting them in the cooler, maybe certain species? I think what he's asking is, if you gut the fish, does it last better? Does it taste better? In my opinion, the only time I would gut a fish before throwing it in the fish box is if it was like a shark, because those sharks, they are disgusting and they stink really bad. So when you catch a shark, you got to dress it, gut it before you throw it in the ice. Now, there is merit to bleeding your fish. Any crew members or captains watching my show at home are probably yelling at me not to say this, but there's definitely merit to bleeding your fish when the fishing is slow, or when I have time, or when I think about it. I definitely, especially those trophy fish like those big scamp, those big trigger fish that I'm gonna definitely get home and eat and enjoy eating. I like to bleed them because bleeding the fish is definitely going to lower the amount of blood in the meat, and the bloodline is smaller. It definitely makes them super tasty. So there's merit to bleeding your fish, gutting your fish. If they were going to be on ice for multiple days, then yeah, you need to gut your fish. But if they're going to be on ice for 24, 48 hours, get filleted, and then you're taking the fillets home, no need to gut your fish. But like, for example, on a commercial boat, they catch a fish, they gut it because they're going to throw it in the ice hold, and it's going to be in the ice hold for a week before it's filleted and those fillets are sold or frozen. So that's why you would gut a fish. So there's merit to gutting fish, but only if they're going to be on ice for a super long time. Generally, you're just bleeding a fish, filleting it, and that's it. Do you have a preferred method for hooking shrimp for hogfish? Generally, I prefer to hook a shrimp. If this is a shrimp's tail, the end of my finger is a shrimp's tail, I would go up underneath the base of the tail and out the top of the... I clean my office, so I don't have any hooks or tools in front of me. But basically, I put the barb of the hook up underneath the base of the tail and out the top of the shrimp. I need to make a video on that. Thanks for the reminder there. Let's see. Next question. Hi, Dylan. I know you can catch blackfin tuna, but do you ever catch yellowfin tuna? No, not normally. We've caught yellowfin tuna before. We caught yellowfin tuna maybe 2 years ago on a 39-hour trip trolling. But it is not something I would say we catch even remotely regularly, it is very rare for us to see yellowfin tuna in our area off our coast. They do occasionally see them in the northern Gulf, or actually they see them quite a bit in the northern Gulf and off of Texas, but here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, we don't see them a lot. Next question was, when will you be able to book a trip? You can book a trip anytime. We are currently closed through the month of April. Excuse me. Through the month of April, we're currently closed, but you can book a trip on our website anytime. Just go to hubbardsmarina.com. Let me walk you through it there. You can go onto our website, hubbardsmarina.com, and on our website, just simply click reservations. Excuse me. And there's a button to book your fishing trip. It brings up a calendar. It shows you what's available. You can book a fishing trip right here, right online. This coming week, though, we do have payroll, so we got to pay our staff. So likely Thursday, we'll have some people in the office from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you want to wait and talk to someone on the phone, we will likely have some people in the office. Again, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. this coming Thursday. Maybe. Hopefully. Planning on it. But time will tell. We'll see what happens there. And again, as in past Thursdays, it will be a closed, locked office. No foot traffic will be permitted in our office. We just will have some people on the phones helping you out. And that's a goal. Not planned yet, but stay tuned to our morning videos. We'll let you know about that. But anytime you can book a trip on our website. The website never closes, thankfully. Do you ever run into barracuda when fishing near shore, offshore? We definitely run into barracuda. We see them quite a bit offshore in the summertime, especially around the artificial wrecks and stuff like that. But it's not something we really target in our area. Next question is, what is your go-to setup for amberjack, and what bait do you use for the big amberjack? My go-to setup for an amberjack is a really large reel, like a Penn 9/0 with 100-pound monofilament, or a big 2-speed, like 50 wide, something that I would use for trolling, with, again, probably 100-pound mono or even 125-pound mono. And I would use a really big, like 10-ounce weight, and then a big swivel, and then 125-pound leader. And I'd use a longer leader, probably like a 6-8 foot leader if I got room, maybe even longer. But if there's a lot of people around, I'd shorten it up to 6 feet, 8 feet. But I'd use a long leader and a super big hook, like a 10 to 14-aught super heavy duty circle hook. And I'd use a really big bait, like a big porgy. One of my favorite baits is a angelfish or spadefish, but a porgy works really well. A big pinfish, a pigfish, but you want something. The biggest, most aggressive, heavy live bait is my favorite go-to amberjack bait. And a lot of times with amberjack, the trick that I like doing is a lot of people will hook up that big bait on that big reel and then rocket their live bait to bottom, and that's not the best method. A lot of times your biggest amberjack is at the top of that water column, or at the top of that big school waiting to hammer a big bait. So a lot of times I will hook up that bait, drop it over the side of the boat, and then slowly drop it down to bottom by applying a lot of pressure with my thumb and just barely letting that bait go to bottom super slowly. Now, when I put it in the water, I'll let it drop quickly until it's about out of sight. Once I lose sight of that bait, that's when I put the brake on with my thumb and I start dropping it super, super slowly. That's when, if I feel the bait start to get nervous, I'll put it in gear and just stop there for a little while. Because a lot of times you're going to get that big amberjack to bite well before you hit the bottom. And that's the goal. If you're targeting a big 60, 80, 90, 100-pound amberjack, you don't want to catch it at the bottom of 200 foot of water. It'd be a lot better to hook that fish in 60 or 100 foot of water well off the bottom, because it's going to make your life a lot easier, and you can finesse him a little bit more. You're not worried about him hooking you up into the wreck you're fishing, or breaking you off in the ledge or the peak or whatever you happen to be fishing. So big bait, big fish, drop it slow. That's my recommendations for Amberjack. And the best time to get them is May. They're open all May. So hopefully you've joined us for a 39-hour trip or 44-hour trip in May to target those Amberjack. Next question is, hey, is the 20% off gift certificate special still going on? Yes, it is. Coupon code Hubbards. Check out the website. Buy them online. Coupon code is, again, Hubbards. Next question, best bait to use when on the 39-hour trip, cut, dead bait, or live bait? Definitely my favorite go-to setup on a 39-hour trip is a high-speed, 2-speed reel like my Daiwa Saltist, or especially my Daiwa Saltiga, on my custom Hubbard's Marina Bull Bay rods, something with a nice light setup. Super light, can fish 39 hours with it, not wear myself out. Nice light sensitive tip, strong backbone, good strong reel, high gear ratio. And then I like to use a double snell rig with that cut thread fin chunk. I cut the head off, cut the tail off, trim the belly, and I put that double snell rig through that bait. And that is my favorite go-to bait on a 39-hour trip. If you want to learn how to do that stuff, go to our website, click Fishing Trips, scroll down and hit that Fishing Tips and Tricks page. On this Tips and Tricks page, we have the video on how to tie a double snell rig, how to rig a double snell rig, how to properly rig it with the bait. All that kind of stuff is all right here on the Tips and Tricks page. So definitely check that out. And good question. But live bait has its place on a 39-hour. A smaller line pinfish works really well for those big mangrove snapper. Grouper love big pinfish, the live bait. So live bait is definitely a good option on a 39-hour, but I would say most often I'm using dead baits because I like mangrove snapper fishing, and they love those cut thread fin plugs. Next question is, have you heard anything about red snapper for this year? My favorite question definitely is about that, because we know about red snapper. We've known about it for 2 years. Red snapper always open up June 1st, and they're always open for at least a little bit of time. So you always want to book June 1st as early and often and as much as you can. This year is the exact same season as last year for federally permitted for-hire boats. So red snapper season opens June 1st and it closes August 2nd at 12:01 a.m., meaning June 1st all the way through end of day August 1st is when you can legally harvest those red snapper. Keep in mind, FWC did announce a private recreational season of June 11th through July 25th. It's about 45 days. That is a private recreational red snapper season, meaning you have to be on a private boat, private captain, private crew, no money exchanges hands. That's a private boat. That trip or that boat would be able to catch red snapper June 11th through July 25th. Federally permitted for-hire charter boats and party boats in the Gulf, June 1st through end of day August 1st. All right, let's see here. What other questions? After this shutdown, are we in danger of Hubbard's Marina changing the amount of people per trip to continue social distancing? I know a lot of trips are sold out during red snapper season. Yes, that is definitely something we've thought about. So we're again planning to open May 1st, and hopefully again planning to go fishing on May 1st. But that's definitely something we thought about when we reopen, continue to limit capacity, because before we closed in mid-March, we were severely limiting capacity. We were only allowing a few people on those big boats to try to limit the number of people on the boat to try to keep everybody spaced out. So that's very likely something we're going to do when we reopen. But because we don't know for sure when we're reopening, we don't know for sure what's going to be going on in the world or with the virus, we haven't put any plans in place specifically, but that's definitely all those different things are on our minds, in our playbooks, and perhaps something that we might have to push through. Now, for trips that are more full, like the first week of June for red snapper season, we're not going to kick people off the boat, but I have a feeling if this stuff is still hanging around, probably a few people are going to naturally fall off, and then we can get back to that restricted number that we're looking for. So to answer your question, it's possible. We've thought about it. We might have to do that. We might want to do that, but we don't know. It's all up in the air. What fish are in season for October? In October, a little bit of everything is open, except for red snapper and triggerfish. Jacks are open, gags are open, and everything else out there is wide open. So the main species that have seasons are red snapper, amberjack, gag grouper, triggerfish, and red grouper. Red grouper right now is open all year. Triggerfish are open March 1st through May 2nd. Amberjack are open May, August, September, and October. Red snapper June 1st through August 1st. And I forget the other one that I said. I think I listed them all. I don't know. But to answer your question, in October, we can catch a little bit of everything except for red snapper and triggerfish. Let's see here. Is the coronavirus going to affect the opening of fishing seasons? That is a good question. And the answer is most likely a resounding no for federal seasons. Federal government is slow to adapt to things, as many of you know, and because right now the feds don't have people doing surveys, so normally our fishery is monitored by dockside intercepts and boat ramp surveys and what's called the Marine Resource Intercept Program, or MRIP. And they monitor and survey people, and that's how they get an idea of what we're catching. Because of coronavirus, they don't have people doing surveys. So without surveys being done, they don't know how many boats are going out, what those boats are catching. Fishing regulations are definitely still in place. There's enforcement is on the water. It's just the surveys aren't being done. So don't get me wrong. There's definitely regulations in place, seasons, bag limits, size limits, all still being enforced, but the surveys aren't being done. So all this to say, likely this year, nothing will change with fishing seasons, regardless of coronavirus. So really hoping that this is out of the way and gone by opening of red snapper season, which is June 1st. So here's to hoping. How many pounds of drag do you use for grouper and the type of hook and line? I like using a reel with 40 pounds, 45, 50 pounds of drag for a grouper. And type of hook and line kind of depends on your grouper that you're targeting. Like for example, red grouper and scamp grouper, I'd like probably 60 pound and like 6 to 7/0 hooks. For big gag grouper in the 20, 30 pound range, 100, 125 pound test. 10 to 12/0 hook for smaller gags and near shore waters. I would step that down to maybe 60, 80 pound. So it really depends on the depth and the trip that you're asking about there for what type of hook and line do you use for grouper. So try to be as specific as you can with your questions, guys, and I'd be more than happy to be as specific as I can with an answer. Next thing is, can't wait for my 12-hour night mangrove snapper trip. I can't wait either. We've got one of those scheduled May 1st, and hoping and praying we can make that work. So we'll see. Uh, any recommended technique for getting unsnagged off the bottom when bottom fishing? There's a lot of recommended techniques for getting unsnagged on the bottom, but none of them are foolproof. My favorite method when I don't have a fish on and I get hung in the bottom, a lot of times I'll lift the rod tip up and I'll drop the rod tip real closely and I'll see if my lead is free. If you can pick your rod tip up and drop it and you feel that lead bounce on your line, that's a good sign. A lot of times if you give it a little bit of slack, you can just whip your rod tip up and let that lead bounce, and a lot of times that lead will pull that hook out from what you're snagged in. If your lead is snug or hung too, meaning it's so deep underneath the ledge or whatever that your lead is not bouncing when you move your rod tip, that's not a good sign. A lot of times you're not going to be able to get that out, and if you do get it out, your line's going to be so frayed up you're going to have to retie it anyway. So it kind of depends on your situation. If you have a fish on and he rocks you up, the best method is to slack up. Once you know you're beat and you can't get him up, slack up, give him complete slack and hold that line. And a lot of times you'll feel a little thump or you'll feel him start swimming, and that's when you put the hammer down and reel as hard and fast as you can and lift up as hard as you can. And a lot of times you'll get a second shot to try to get that fish out of that hole. Or the second method, if you're rocked up and the fish is on the line, I'll reel down as tight. First thing I'll do is, again, give him slack, see if he swims out. If he swims out, you get a second chance. If you're rocked up and he's not swimming out and you slacked off and he's not moving, that's when I like to reel down as tight as I can, get that line super tight, and I'll play the banjo, which means just flick that line. And a lot of times that vibration, that noise traveling down the fishing line pisses them off, and they'll swim out of the rock to try to head to their own rock, and you'll get a second chance to try to bring them up out of the hole. So it really depends on your situation and what's going on. But as far as not being hung up in the or as far as being hung up without a fish on, generally I just like to yank on it a few times, let that lead bounce it out. If I got a fish on, I'll give it slack, see if he swims out. If he doesn't, I'll reel down tight, play that banjo, and see what happens. All right, so we've answered a bunch of questions, still not through all of them, but it is time to give away a 10-hour all-day for 2 people. So a 10-hour all-day for 2 people. Let's see who won that. Remember, if you're picked as a lucky winner, you do have to text me your home address to that number in the upper right hand corner of the screen. Brent D. Hart from Kentucky. Brent D. Hart, you are the lucky winner of a 10-hour all day for 2 guests. Remember, you don't have much time. You got about 5 minutes to claim that free trip by texting that phone number you see in the upper right hand corner, your home address, to claim that free trip. All right, let's see here. What other questions do we have? Are there still spots available for 39-hour trips during red snapper season? Yes, there's a ton of spots available during red snapper season for 39 and 44-hour trips. I always recommend booking early and booking often. Right now you can book on our website. There's some spots open for sure. I like fishing up on the side closer to the bow. That's where there's a lot of room on almost all of those trips. During red snapper season, we have 39-hour trips on Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday. Generally, the Sunday or Tuesday trips are much lighter or a little lighter loads than Friday. The first 2 weeks of red snapper season, first 2 weeks of June, are typically more busy. Once you get into later June and especially July, there's a lot more room. Let's see here. I would like to do a 12-hour night trip. Will that trip be good also for a 15-year-old who is not a very experienced fisherman? Uh, yeah, I would probably start if you have a 15-year-old that wants to go fishing with you. I would probably start them on a 10-hour trip. Make sure that they enjoy it, that they get the hang of the reel, they get the hang of the bite. They can handle 10 hours on the boat and don't go crazy or drive you crazy. And once you know that your 15-year-old has got the hang of the reel, the hang of the bite, they're catching fish, they're hooked on fishing, then I would maybe suggest trying a 12-hour night trip. And then once you try a 12-hour night trip, maybe try a longer trip like a 12-hour extreme or 39-hour trip. But it's always a good idea to start small and work your way up. The longer range, more experienced angler trips like our 12 and 39 and 44-hour trips, they have big learning curves if you're not a super experienced angler. There's ways to get around that by watching our videos, watching our Bass Pro seminars, our fishing tips and tricks pages, reading the website. There's ways to lower that learning curve, but the best way to do it is starting small, trying a few trips, getting the hang of how to use the rod, how to feel the bite, how to get the fish unhooked, how to hook the bait, all those different intricacies, and also just learn how we do things. And then generally it makes your learning curve much smaller. It makes it a lot more enjoyable to catch fish and to join us on those longer trips. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? Any great white shark sightings near Johns Pass? We definitely have great whites in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're typically most common in the cooler months. From October to around March is where we see the most often great whites being in our area. There was one sighted recently off Johns Pass, like last 2 months. We haven't seen one on our trips recently, but last year during red snapper season in like June, early June, there was what was apparently a great white shark, apparently hooked, came up to the boat, took off, broke the line. That was never photographed or videotaped, but I have captains, crew, and customers swearing up and down, great white shark. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure I've seen one before in like December at night. It was cruising just outside the lights on a 39-hour trip. We were in like 6-8 foot seas. It was rough. It was wintertime fishing, rough seas. The lights are shining out off the boat. And just outside of the light line is this huge, like 4 foot tall dorsal fin. And this thing is like a sub. It's just cruising. 6-8 foot waves. It tosses our 70-foot boat around. This big, old, heavy, fat, large shark was just cruising unaffected by the waves. It was pretty big animal. It had to be something like a great white or a massive tiger or a hammerhead, but it was kind of out in the distance. It was in the dark. This was before camera phones. I was pretty young, but it's something I'll never forget. And of course, my grandfather and my father, they've caught, and my grandfather used to catch and keep great whites back in the day. So yeah, there's definitely great whites in our area. Will the reduced fishing pressure from fishing charters like Hubbard's Marina being closed make a difference, or is that not much pressure? We definitely put a lot of pressure on the fish, and a lot of people are closed, but there's plenty of charters still running. Again, Pinellas County made charter fishing illegal by county commission orders, but there's still charters running in our county, and there's tons of charters running out of Hillsborough, Sarasota, Manatee, north of us, Hernando. So there's plenty of charters still running, and even in our county, there's tons of boats, hundreds of boats fishing every day. I think there's more pressure on the fish right now because not a lot of people are working. A lot of people are just out in their boats, getting out of the house and fishing. But without surveys being done, no one knows. But I've seen it firsthand. I have never seen, like on a July 4th weekend or a New Year's Eve when the fireworks are going out, there's boat after boat after boat leaving the pass to go see the fireworks or to go out to the sandbar. That's how it's been almost every weekend inside John's Pass. It's been nuts how many boats are out there and going out fishing. So I don't think there's much reduced pressure. Our fishing spots hopefully aren't being fished because we're not out there fishing them. So hopefully it'll help our fishing spots, and I'm confident that come May 1st we're going to go out there and hammer the fish. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. What other questions? Have you done any upgrades to the fleet during this time? Unfortunately, no. Right now would be a great time to upgrade the fleet and to do dry dock and to do maintenance and to do projects. But we're trying not to spend any money because right now we're saving all our money to try to pay our staff members. So we're not paying any bills. We're completely closed, trying not to spend any dollars because we're trying to focus on making sure our business and our staff members, our captains, our crew survives this tough time. So right now we're not spending money. We almost bought an engine for the hub. We ended up not buying it. We're putting all upgrades, all purchases on hold, trying to get through this tough time and support our staff members and our families in our Hubbard's Marina family and focus on the survival of the business. Once we're open, back up and running, that's when we'll be buying all that stuff through the summer. And we typically do our upgrades and our maintenance in the early fall, like September, October is when we do dry dock. That's when we pull boats out of service and start changing stuff around and upgrading them. So let's see, what other questions do we have? Are Amberjack good eating, and what's the preferred method of preparing Amberjack? I prefer to smoke Amberjack and make fish bread, but they're very good eating. They make super good fried fish if you fry them up fresh. They're really good grilled fresh. Cutting the bloodline out helps a lot. Bleeding Amberjack helps cut down on the bloodline, which gives you more meat. But definitely, as long as you cut the bloodline out and you eat them fresh, Amberjack's super good eating. A lot of people say Amberjack are terrible and they're wormy and they're not good eating, but they are on our coast, on the east coast of Florida. Not so good. There's a lot more worms. Those Amberjack generally have more mercury because they're eating those fish off the reefs of the Caribbean and off of the Bahamas. So they have a lot higher mercury levels and they have a lot more parasites like worms in the meat. Our Gulf of Mexico Amberjack don't really eat those bait fish that give the high levels of mercury. They don't have as many worms because our water is a little different, and they're super good eating as long as you eat them fresh. But my favorite is definitely fish bread. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? If you already have a reservation for an upcoming trip, can you buy a 20% off gift certificate to use towards that trip? Yes, if you have a trip booked that you have not paid for, meaning you have a trip booked, you have not paid for it, you still owe money on it, you can go buy a gift certificate for 20% off and use that 20% off gift certificate to pay for that trip when it comes time to pay, or for that day. So definitely, as long as if you have a reservation, you can buy a gift certificate, use that gift certificate to pay for that future reservation, as long as you haven't paid. That's the goal here, is we're only offering this deal so that way we can cover all the refunds we're having to do and hopefully offset some of that cost of refunding people, because again, we're trying to hold on to as many dollars and cents as we can to try to take care of our staff. And right now everybody is trying to cancel trips for June, July, even August, and I don't understand why. I wish people would hold on and wait, not panic, because that's a long way out. Stuff can change between now and then. And we're trying our best to encourage people to take a future credit or a gift certificate instead of canceling and wanting a refund. But the customer is always right, and we're doing our best to make sure everybody is happy as can be. Let's see here. What other questions? Living in South Florida, I want to come out to the West Coast on one of your charters this summer. What would be a good first time trip to get a feel for Gulf fishing? Well, without knowing the level of experience that you have, it's hard to tell. But it sounds like you do a lot of charter fishing down in southeast Florida, on the east coast of Florida. If you're a super experienced angler, the best trip is always the 39-hour trip. If you're super experienced, especially if you got a long ride. So often people are like, "Hey, I'm coming from Atlanta. What trip should I do?" Don't come from Atlanta to do a 10-hour trip or a 12-hour trip. If you're driving 4, 5, 6 hours, you should do trips that are 3, 4 times longer than your drive, in my opinion. So if I'm driving 4, 5, 6 hours for a trip, I'm going to do a 39-hour trip or a 44-hour trip, try to make it worth it, in my opinion. Let's see, what other questions? When does the 39-hour start encountering pelagic fish? Well, it kind of depends on the time of year, but generally around 20 to 25 miles is where we start getting into that bluer water. And when you start having a chance to run across those bigger kingfish, blackfin tuna, perhaps other pelagic species. So you never know, but generally about 20 to 25 miles is where I start switching my lures out to those pelagic lures. Let's see here. This is a guest from Zephyr Hills. I'm getting ready to buy my first boat. Just wondering what an experienced captain like yourself would advise in a first boat for inshore family outings. It's hard. It's so hard. My father-in-law just actually went through this process. He was buying a boat. He was asking me what I suggest. There's so many boats out there, so many different types of boats, kinds of boats, layouts of boats. So it really depends on what you're looking for your family, what you want to do with the boat, how much time you want to spend on the boat. Do you want to fish off the boat? What kind of fishing do you want to do? Do you want to do offshore fishing, nearshore fishing, inshore fishing? All those things play a part. For example, if you want to go offshore fishing, you're not going to the island, you're not going flats fishing. You want either a cabin cruiser or a hardcore center console. But if you're going to go nearshore fishing and spend a little time inshore fishing and hitting the island, then you need something like a little bay boat crossover that's going to do inshore, shallow water, and nearshore. So it's really difficult to answer that question without a little bit more information. But I'd be happy to chat with you more after the show and help you out. My father-in-law ended up settling on a Sea Hunt, which is a beautiful boat. I took it out with him and showed him some things. It's a beautiful riding boat. And the guys at Pro Marine over in Bay Pines hooked him up. So definitely some good options there. Do you allow braided line on your boat? Yes and no. We allow braided line as long as you're using a top shot and you're not causing issues. Meaning, with braided line, you gotta tie a monofilament top shot. And a top shot is simply a leader before the leader. So you have your braided line, you tie a line to line knot, you put 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet of monofilament on top of that braid, and then you put your weight on that monofilament, and then you put your swivel and leader. That's a top shot. It's basically a leader before the leader, creates a little shock absorber, and it ensures that if you do happen to get tangled up with someone, you can untangle it. It ensures that you don't lose a bunch of fish, because braided line straight to your swivel sucks. You'll lose a lot of fish. They'll spit the hook easier. You're not going to get as many bites for sure. So always use a top shot, and as long as it's not causing problems, braid is okay. But if it's causing issues, we may have to ask you to stop. But generally, if you know what you're doing, you're paying attention to your rod and reel, it's not a problem as long as you're using that top shot. But with that, my son is crying, and I don't know if it's because he can hear me, and I'm going to be a smart father and end this right on time to make sure that I'm not keeping my son up. And keeping my son up then in turn keeps my wife up, and happy wife, happy life. I was married at night, but not last night. All right, let's see here. I don't think we got to 400 live viewers. I think we were just shy of it. We had like 390 at one point, but we never got quite to 400 live viewers. But we'll go ahead and give away a free 39-hour trip for one person anyway, because I like you and I missed last week, and that's why we'll just go ahead and round it up. So let's see here. Let's see who won a free 39-hour trip for one person. Drum roll, please. Natasha Baldwin from Colorado. No locals tonight. That's interesting. A lot of times we'll get a lot of locals. It kind of switches around. We'll go all locals, then we'll go all out-of-towners. It's pretty odd. Make sure to, again, shoot me a text message with your home address to claim your free trip. Make sure you tune in next week. Another live show next week. Don't forget to watch our daily morning live videos to catch up with our sunrises, what's going on. If you're a member of the Tampa Bay Fishing Club, make sure you check out that post that I was talking about this morning. Some people talking a lot of smack about Hubbard's Marina. Would appreciate your backup. If you go to Tampa Bay Fishing Club, that fishing forum group, you look up that post about have you ever been skunked on a charter? A lot of people pretty upset with Hubbard's Marina, not saying the nicest things. So if you got a minute, you want to get on there and say something nice about us, we'd appreciate it. I hope you guys had a very happy Easter. I hope you enjoyed the show and you enjoy our daily videos. We'll keep them coming. We'll see you May 1st, because by May 1st, this is all going to be behind us and we're ready to go fishing. So you guys have a great night. We'll see you next week for another awesome show. Hopefully it's awesome. I don't know. You let me know in the comments below. You guys have a good night. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy.